I'm going to try something a little bit different with this tutorial. I'm going to walk through from start to finish making a very, very simple, short platform game using NESmaker. It's going to show a lot of the new features, and I'm going to probably stop and start the camera a bunch of times. But I want you to see a workflow all the way from start to finish, and hopefully I'll have some links that will allow you to dig in deeper to some of the sections for the stuff I kind of gloss over kind of quickly. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this folder and I'm going to make a duplicate of it. And eventually with NESmaker, you're not going to have to do this. You're going to be able to go to File, New, and it's going to create a whole new file structure that you're working in. But right now, I'll show you one of the other folders. This is the folder structure that's inside here. You need all of this for a game. So for instance, here's the graphics. If I start manipulating the graphics for anything that uses this folder, it's going to end up using those graphics. So if you can imagine the tree being one level above this folder, and when you create a new one, it creates a new folder with this structure. That's how NESmaker is pretty much going to operate in future versions when it finally is released. For right now, though, this is sort of the system that we do. We copy it, we duplicate it. So I'm going to make a Pi Beta platformer, and if you'll notice, I'm using NESmaker 3.14159263653. This is the Pi Beta release. And if you're seeing a different version than this, your results may vary with these tutorials, but it still will be a good source of information for you to understand some stuff. If you've already done some tutorials, there are a few things different with this beta release, and I'm going to try and hyper focus on those things because some things may not work the way that you think that they would. So I'm going to open up NESmaker. Just a blank file right here, and the first thing that would happen is you would have to activate it if you haven't activated it yet. It's really simple. If you are a beta backer, or if you've bought a license and it's sometime after August, you should have gotten a license code in email. That's your registration email, and here you can enter your email address that you registered with, the key that you were sent, and a password. That's not one that you've gotten. That's one you're creating, and that's going to allow you to log into the licensing system with that email and password to manage your licenses. So you do get 2 licenses. You get to license it on 2 machines. If you decided that you got a new computer and you wanted to unlicense it on your old crappy laptop and license it on the brand new computer, you could do that. You could unlicense it on the one computer, or you could cancel that license and then activate it on the new one. And you absolutely do not have to be online. I'm not online right now for NESmaker to work. However, you do need to register online, and I believe it looks for re-registration once a month. It could be twice a month, and you only have to be on for a second just to reactivate, and then boom, it's done. So make sure that you at least have the capability to get online, even if you're planning to work offline. I work offline generally when I'm working on NESmaker. All right, so we're going to make a platform game, and we haven't made a platform game with NESmaker yet. Not really, just a quick proof of concept. But this time we're actually going to build a straight-up platform game, and I'm going to show you where we're going with the modules. So, the maze game module versus the platform module versus the RPG module, etc. We have a really basic draft of how that's basically going to work, and I'm going to show you how that works. And we got a bunch of other fun new things in this beta that we didn't have in the other one. One thing I want to do is let me take a look at some of the scripts real quick. I'm going to just give some names to some of these scripts. So in my tile types, I want to take a look at what every tile type is. So tile type 0 is a walkable tile. Okay, let me close these out here. Tile type 0 is walkable. So I'm going to put up here walkable, and I could even make a note to myself if I wanted what each of these is. Solid, this is just a kill player, whatever this player death code says to do. This is win game, warp to a specific screen. This is a solid collision. However, this solid collision goes away. I believe this is a monster lock. So when you defeat all the monsters, this solid object goes away. Number 6, I believe, is a all item lock. So if you get all of a specific item that's on the screen, this will go away. 7 is a checkpoint. This resets the continue location. 8, this is a monster block, which I've created specifically for this engine. So 8 is a monster block. I'm gonna remember that. Monster block. I'm writing it down on a little piece of paper here. 8 is a monster block. It allows you to sort of trap a monster on a platform, and you can use it in a maze game as well. Like if you wanted to curtail monster's movement to a specific area, have them go back and forth or something, you could use a monster block to do that. 9 is like a bouncy trampoline that allows you to sort of launch upwards. 10 is a ladder, and I just kind of know this. 11 is a ladder top. So go ahead and I'm just remarking these so that I remember what they are. Ladder top is different than a ladder only because if you're walking on a ladder top and you walk across it, you won't fall through. On a ladder, you will. Like you can walk across, and if you're standing on top of a ladder top, you're just standing there until you press down, and then you enter the ladder. The ladder physics is mostly working in this engine so far. I'm sure it'll still be tweaked. There's a lot of code that still needs a little bit of tweaking to make platformers work perfectly. And of course, I don't know what to include because I don't know what your specific needs are. But that gives we have a lot of things that we can do just with those tile types right there. And some of these we could even combine if we wanted to be clever about how to use them. So what I want to do is I want to go to project labels, and I'm going to go to tile types. And yep, the first one was null, the second one was solid, death, win, warp, all monster lock, all pickup lock, checkpoint, yep, all those. And those are the same ones I had for my maze game. But these ones are new. And if I remember right, number 8, I can go back here and check this out. What was number 8? Number 8 was a 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 was a monster block. Number 9, if I look, was a bouncy trampoline bounce block. Number 10, I remember was a ladder, and number 11 was a ladder top. And what I'm doing is I'm customizing the tool so that way when I'm looking at tile types and I'm trying to assign collision tile type to a tile, these are the ones that are going to pop up. Ladder top. These are the choices that are going to come up, so it'll be easy for me to remember. Okay, that's a monster block, that's a bounce block, ladder. Okay, they didn't exist in my top-down game. In a top-down game, they'd be completely different things, and some of these might even be different or whatever. So anyway, that's just doing some front end sort of clerical work here. The other thing that I want to do is I want to set my emulator. So I'm going to find my emulator, which I'm going to set this to FCEUX, which is in my desktop in NES stuff, FCEUX, and I need to excuse me, navigate to my game file, which by beta platformer inside game engine, this is my root folder, and choose my game.nes file, and now it'll use the FCEUX emulator as my tester when I go to compile the game. Rather than open it in our sort of default emulator, it'll open it in that. So that's really all I had to do to get a basic setup going, and now I'm just going to start designing things. And there are some tutorials out here about how to use the pixel editor and things like that. What's nice is I've already gone ahead and I'll show you. I've already went ahead and made some of this stuff that you would need to maybe make. Like here is a tile set for my main overworld, and what I can do is I can put it through a put it through the palettes. I can translate it through these palettes to see what it'll actually look like in game. But I haven't set up any palettes. So let me real quick set up a palette group, and I'm going to call this first palette group Overworld Grassland, and I'm going to make another palette group called Underworld Dungeon, and I'm going to make a palette here. I'm going to call this Overworld Grass 1, and I'll make this one Underworld Dungeon 1, and I'm just going to assign these. So I'm going to assign this one to the grassland, assign this one to the dungeon, and now if I'm looking at my pixel editor, I can actually start playing. I'm not going to actually be editing pixels, I don't think. I think I've already edited this. But if I put this through the Overworld Grassland, now I can translate this through the palettes. And I used a sky blue color as my transparent, as my sort of default color. And I can't remember what colors. I believe it was like a green and then a brown color. Oops, a brown color. And then a black. That's sort of my base color set. And then I had a two-tone green and a darker green and a black maybe. And then I'm sort of going from memory here. I used a light gray and a dark gray and a black for this. And I'm just like, this is for the stone or the metal or whatever you want to say, this palette. This one I actually use for trees and treetops and things like that. And this one I'm using for like most of these blocks and stuff. So this is my palette for that. And I'm not saving this or anything because I didn't make any changes. I just wanted to sort of see as I was making the palettes here. So now I'll add my dungeon and I'll load up my Underworld Dungeon palette. And again, I'm kind of going from memory here. I believe my background color for this was the darkest color blue, and then it was light gray, dark gray, and black maybe, I'm pretty sure. And this was mostly for these background tiles. And then I had darkest color blue. I think it was yellow, orange, and green. So this gave me like, I'll make it a brighter green like that. No. I guess I like that one best. So this gave me sort of my pebbles and my vines to climb up. And then there was another stone. So light gray, dark gray, and I believe it was black. And I think those were my palettes, how I set them up. So this could now be stone. I could use this as like a stone bridge, whatever. I don't love I almost would rather this be black like this, but it presents problems with, I need a second black to make an outline with some of the tiles. So for now, let's keep it like that. And now I've got two palettes finished. So if I look over here, So if I look over here, I've now got two palettes, and it doesn't automatically show up, but if I do something like this and just click on something, now I can actually see the colors of the palettes. All I did was just open it up and pretend like I was changing a value and just chose the same value, and it popped up over here. All right, so now I've got some palettes that work great with the tiles that I'm going to use that sort of look the right color. And now I'm going to start making my tile assets. So if I go to Graphic Banks and I go to Assets, I can start making tiles, and I could use those tile types. And here's where that first step that I did by making the monster block and the bounce block and the ladder top, this is where all that comes into play. So what I'll do is I'll start by making a walkable sky. And the first tile that I always make, I'll even call this Overworld Sky. The first tile that I always make, I make to be the sort of default one that's supposed to fill the screen. So in the underground, I'm going to use that light brick tile, and because then when I make a new screen, it's going to fill it with that, and then I'm writing over the top of that with these other tiles. So for my Overworld, I want it to be sky. I'm going to save it, and let's start going through. All of these will be solid, and they're going to use this sub palette. So I'm going to use solid. Now what's nice about creating assets, you can see them here. Some of you guys might get a little confused by this. If I'm clicked on assets, if I have assets selected, that means I can just like rapid fire create assets, save new, make a new one, save new, make a new one, save new. If I need to go back and edit a particular asset, I need to click on that asset, and you can see that asset is now selected. And if I make a change, it doesn't say save new anymore, it says update. And now any changes I make are gonna be updated. If I want to go back to just rapid fire creating new assets again, I make sure that I click on assets, and there I am with save new. Okay, so let's make some solid assets. What do we want to call this? Ground, and we'll call this top center ground. Okay, and it's solid. Save it. We'll use this as top left. Save it. We'll use this as top right. Save it. We'll use this as left. We'll use this as right. We'll use this as center. So if this is this one here. So this is a big group of tiles now. I have a bunch of different ones that can make up spot. I'm not even going to use these right now, but I'm going to use these. So this is bottom, center, bottom left, bottom right, and yeah, I guess I'll use this. And this is sort of like one tile center. So this is if I, these are if I had like a grouping of the ground. This is if I like had a platform in the air. So I'll save that, and this is one tile left, and this is one tile right. Awesome. So now I've got a bunch of ground tiles. This tree I actually want to be in the background, so like I don't collide with it. I'm going to use walkable type for the tree, and I'll make its height 2, and I'll make walkable like that, and I'll call this tree. Save new. But I also might want an extension of that tree, so I'll call this one tree extension, like if I wanted a taller tree. Save new. Now let me start working on like the bricks, and I guess I could do this box too. So this box is solid, and maybe in the real game I would make this like if you hit it or jump on it or something, it explodes. We'll call this box. Save it, and then I'm going to use this gray sub palette here for a metal box, which is also solid, and let's call this platform left, platform center, platform right. And I don't know whether I want these bricks to be solid or something that's in the background. I'm going to make them background tiles right now. I just haven't decided. So I'm going to call this background bricks. Save that. So now I've got a bunch of tiles that I can use to make a screen, but I'm also going to add some screen specific tiles. So if I click on main tiles, these are screen specific tiles that I have loaded so far, and you can see they work pretty well with this tile set. They actually work good with this and the dungeon tile set that I set up. So this here is definitely going to be a death tile. So I'll call this spikes. I'll save it. This is a door tile. So what this would be is probably too high, and probably anywhere I hit this. I could just make the bottom a warp, but I don't know the size of the player I'm going to use or whatever. So maybe what I'll do is I'll make this whole thing a warp to screen, and I'll call this door. I'll make that warp to screen and save it. Right? Yep. Okay. And then this is going to be interesting. So this one is actually going to be where I can save, make a a checkpoint, but this is not actually going to be the tile that's creating the checkpoint. The tile that's going to be creating the checkpoint is going to be floating above it, but this is just a visual reference, so I know, oh, that's where the checkpoint is. So colliding with this is not actually going to do anything, but if I'm standing above it, I'm hitting the checkpoint. So this is going to be solid, just like checkpoint base. Save that. This is a ladder, and I want one for a ladder and a ladder top. So let's call this one ladder, and we're going to make it a ladder. And then I also want a ladder top, which is that. This guy here is a bounce tile. That a bounce block. This is a all monsters lock or all pickups lock. I haven't really decided which one yet. I'll make an all monsters lock right now, as well as this one will be an all monsters lock too. All right, so now I've got my overworld tiles. Let me make some assets out of my, so let me make some assets out of my dungeon tiles. So I'll go back to main tile set, and I'll choose tile set 1, and I'm going to go to my Underworld dungeon palette. And again, I'm going to start with this, which is going to be the one I'm going to use for background. So I'll call this dungeon wall, and this is going to be a walkable tile. I'm going to make my ground tile solid, which is going to be all this stuff. So if I go to solid, I'll add this. I'll call this. This is the full ground right here. So let me use this ground 1. Let's call this dungeon ground 1. And notice it's still making it solid. I still have solid selected. This is sort of like a bottom of a dungeon ground. So maybe I'll call this dungeon ground bottom. And then this is a top. And this one's kind of like that one platform, dungeon ground platform, like in the overworld. And now we have this bridge, which should be solid as well. So bridge left, save new, bridge center, bridge right. And I've also got big brick left and big brick right. And these might use different sub palettes here. In fact, I believe that with this is actually supposed to be, I already have the gray palette up at the top. I think this is supposed to be like that. Yeah, so I can get like a cool blue to offset the orange of the ground. Bricks could be that color. So brick smaller for the dungeon. And then we have also this vine, which is going to act as my ladder. Dungeon vine. And a dungeon vine top. They're going to look the same, but they're going to behave a little bit differently. And then the same thing here with a dungeon vine 2. Save it. And dungeon vine 2 top. All right, so I've got a lot of assets. Now I'm going to also deal with paths. For my overworld, I got some really cool things going on for paths. So check this out. I have got a modular cloud system, which I'm going to keep as null and walkable. And this guy right here, he's going to be my tree topper, which This is just a visual style. Notice how I outlined this in black. Outlining this in black is going to give the impression that it's something I can interact with, so it's solid, whereas this is not outlined in black, so that's going to give the impression that it's passive, it's in the background. And that's just a design choice. It's something that I'm going to use for this. A lot of my blocks are outlined in black, and a lot of the things in the background are not, so it's just what I'm using for this game. And you'll see different visual styles used for different types of games and things like that. But if I want this to be solid, I need to say that this is going to be solid. A couple things to note: these are actually provided by one of the project's backers. Really appreciative that they sort of found out how the pathing worked and went and made these cool paths. They also submitted some great text graphics for HUD, and some, I don't know, let me save this real quick. So I'm going to call this Overworld Paths. I'm going to save it. And I don't know if some of you guys noticed it, but if I look back at my assets and I look at tile set 1 and I pull up my Underworld dungeon palettes again, some of these, this bridge and these vines and some of these bricks are actually from Sydney Hunter, the Collector Vision Games awesome new multi-platform game, Sydney Hunter. And I know one of them is the Caverns of Death. That's the one I was a supporter of. But I think they also have Curse of the Mayans and some other Sydney Hunter adventures. So they were gracious enough to allow me to use a couple of their tiles, just gratis. Hey, use these. So I really appreciate that, guys. Definitely check out their game, because I think their stuff is super inspiring, and they started making their game about the same time we started Mystic Searches, which led to this. So I'm really curious to see what they'll do with this tool, and how fast they can crank out a Sydney Hunter sequel or mini game using this tool. That'll be really fun to watch. So anyway, I've got paths and tiles and screen specific tiles. Now I can actually start constructing a screen. So if I go to my overworld, where do I want to start? Now I could make this a Mario-like game where you go left to right, or I could make it sort of a Metroidvania game where you're sort of going all over the place. What if I just start sort of right here? I don't know. Why this screen? I have no idea. So I'm going to make sure I'm on bank 1, because all of these assets are in bank 1, and just click on a screen, and you can see it automatically filled with my my Overworld Sky here, the tile 0. Automatically, I'm going to put it brought in the first tile set, which was, or first palette, which is the Grassland palette, but I'm going to make sure that one's actually selected, and it brought in my main tiles. If I brought in my dungeon tiles, it would show me the dungeon tiles. If I bring in my main tiles, it shows me the main tiles. And I notice at the bottom here, I've got those screen specific ones too. So what I could do is I could use those screen specific ones, whether I'm on either, because you notice the screen specific tiles are here, even though I'm loaded into main tile 1, or if I'm in main tile 0, they're here as well. And that's why using screen specific tiles are so cool, because you can start mixing and matching different tile sets and stuff. So we're going to just take a look at a lot of that, but let's start building some screens. So let's just build a really sort of passive first level here. The first screen, and right now it's putting in the color data, and it's putting in the collision data and the tile data everywhere I place. Oops. So let me show you what I was talking about with the tree. I can place a couple of trees here, and maybe I'll make this tree a little bit taller, and I hit escape to hide the ghosted image there, and if I load up the paths, if I go to screen info and load up that path group, now if I hold down the number 1 key, I'm going to get clouds, and they're modular, so I can really shape them however I want without taking up a ton of room on my tile set. That's why paths are cool, because I can actually make these varied shapes with very few tiles. And then with my number 2 was my sort of squared off, almost comically bubblegum treetops, and I can make these different sized trees if I wanted to. Like I could do something like this with this guy if I wanted to. I don't really like that. Let's do this. I mean, that looks okay. That looks a little bit different. maybe something like that. Yeah, that's better. I like that. So these are solid, don't forget. And if I put my mouse over them right here, I'll escape real quick. Up here, it's going to tell me all the details I need. So it knows what's solid. It knows this is walkable. It knows this is solid. This is nothing at all. So here's a first screen. I want my character to start right here. So I will place my player, and what it did was it just updated the map information, and it updated his placement on that screen information. That's where he's going to start. So now I want to think about a HUD, a really simple HUD, but I'm going to think about a HUD for right up here. And I don't think I have any HUD graphics loaded at this point, so I'm going to come down to Pixel Editor. Let's take a look and build some HUD assets. I just let's see, did I put it in this folder yet or not? I can't remember. HUD assets, HUD assets. We have these. This is what I've been using. We also have this PNG file, which has crazy different fonts, which that's cool as well. And on my thumb drive, I've got, let's see, I think it's a folder. So yeah. I've got a whole bunch of stuff, fonts of different types here, and then I've also got, so this is what I used for the paths, and then there was also just some stray symbols. So if I go here, some cool stuff here. I'm actually going to pull this for how cool the box is, this fantasy HUD right here. I'm going to open this up, and they already went through and sort of made cool boxes, and they made cool graphics, and you know, all kinds of stuff, and they made this cool shadowed tile. Now what's going to happen right now is it's going to translate. Right now we're looking at it in the black, red, green, blue. If I translate it through the HUD, this is what it's going to look like. So I have to start thinking, this is not exactly what I want it to look like. I'm sorry, it's going to use this subpalette. This is not exactly what I want it to look like. I could make the sky color, but it's probably not going to be a good idea to make the sky color, because like if I have a ladder that goes to the top of the screen, it's going to disappear behind the sky. It's going to look kind of weird. What I kind of want is I kind of want to use this dark blue color as this white color. I want to use white for the red or maroon, and I want to have like a gray or like a darker blue or something like that for the darkest blue for the shadow. So let me think of how I can rearrange this without having to redraw everything. I do have the option where I can swap colors. So for instance, I want to swap white and dark blue to start. So I can say, so if I think about what that is, this is the last color. So this would be blue. I want to swap blue for green. Let's see, because I want green to be white. Let's start with that. So and I can also change these colors. These aren't set, so let's see. Maybe I should do that. Maybe I'll just do that. That'll be easiest. So let's make like a purple background so it really stands out. Red is going to be white. But I do need to swap these two because I definitely don't want the background to be that the same color as the sky. I can't change this one. If I change this one here, they all change. I don't want to do that. So let me change dark blue and sky blue here. So that would be changing, if I look at this through this, that would be changing black and red. These first two values right here, black and red. So I'm going to go change black for red, and now when I put it back through, that's more sort of what I want to see. Just trying to think of what's going to be the best color to use for that HUD. I'm not sure. Let's go with that. I don't like anything being this sky color in the HUD because again, I can't really change that. So let's go through and think about what I can do with that. I'm gonna make all of that this color here. So global color change. I don't want anything to be that sky color. So I'm gonna make it all this dark blue right here. Like that. Perfect. That'll do for now. I don't love the way that the hearts look. I don't love the way that some of this stuff looks, but for now, this'll do. Let me let me do this. There. Now oops. Let me do that. Okay, so now that heart looks at least a little bit better. All right, so I'm going to save this as my HUD graphics. So I'm going to go to my root folder, graphic assets, find where it says HUD tiles, overwrite that. And now I can go to my HUD and boxes, and I can start figuring out what I want to see as far as HUD and where. Now I want to be able to see my screen that I'm working on, and you can absolutely do that with this demo screen control. I just need to know what screen it is. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 0, 5, 6. If I look at 5, 6, this is my screen. And now I can set up a playable area and a HUD area. So I'll call this my playable area. And I'll set that as a playable area. And I'll call this my HUD area. Now, one thing to note, you do lose this first row of 8x8. So really this will be my HUD area. A lot of TVs cut this off. So this will really be a very thin HUD, but that's okay. So now I've got this HUD area, and if I want to start assigning tiles. So one thing that's really cool is I can go set numbers and pick the first number, and it'll automatically go 0, 1, 2, 3, and the next 9 values it'll automatically fill. Same thing with letters. As long as they're in order from A to Z, I can go set letters, choose where A is, and as long as they go A to Z, it'll automatically update that kind of thing. Now, as far as the box itself, that's what these last values are for. So I can go to box top left and choose the top left, box top center, box top right, box left, box center, which is going to be just open, nothing, box right, I'm sorry, it's box bottom left, box bottom center, box bottom right, and then this is left, and this is right, and this one is center. And also I want my blank tile. I want to make sure that that's this blank tile. And I could make sure, and I can go through and I can make sure like parentheses are correct and periods correct. I could go through one by one and set them that way. I'm going to skip HUD Assets for a second. I'm just going to go to HUD Elements, and now you can see what that's going to look like. Now, unfortunately, it's going to cut off the top of it if I put that HUD where I have it right now. And it's going to cut off the bottom of it if I put it at the bottom. But for right now, let's just get any HUD going. I'm just going to have it, the information that I want on the screen at any given time. Let me get some text on there, and I want it to say health. So I'm going to move that over, and I'm going to move that down. And I want it to say, I'm going to use text. And I want it to say lives. And I'm going to move that over. And I want it to say score. So I'm setting up elements and kind of putting them in place. I'm not actually going to fill in any data underneath these things yet, just demonstrating the concept. I'm not even going to worry about assets yet, which is how I could draw like images like these. If I wanted to show something specific in images, like a avatar of a player or something like that. I'm not even going to worry about that right now. But now I am getting sort of ready to where I can finally test this stuff. And I know that we're 40 minutes into this tutorial, but at the same time, all the collision data, all the HUD data that I've placed in the player, all that stuff is pretty much ready to go. The one new thing that's going to prevent your game from working, beside the HUD stuff, which is new, is this. I'm going to go to Project Labels. There's a new tab here that's called Script Settings. And this is where you get to define what physics engine you're using, what collision engine you're using, what bounds code you're using. And there's going to eventually be even more code that you can pick from, and this is where you're going to really start to see diversity. When we start to do the modules, you're going to have some presets here, like preset platform game, and it's going to auto-populate all these choices. Or this is where you could get really creative and start writing your own without messing up the one that's there. So I can make a duplicate of the top-down top-down physics engine, for instance, and just start tweaking it and keep testing mine to see what happens. And if I screw it up, no problem. I just go back to the normal top-down one. So this is going to really allow people to some flexibility in making what they envision come to life, which is going to be kind of cool. But I need to set it. So I don't want this physics routine. Let me show you where I've got these scripts. Inside System, Scripts. So if I go to System, Scripts, I've got some different platform physics, or some different physics engines, some different tile collision engines, some different bounds engines. I'm going to, for physics, choose ACC and speed platform simple, and I could call these anything I want. So if it was easier for me and I wrote physics platform, whatever, I'm going to choose that one. And same thing with tile collision. I'm going to choose let's see, tile collision platform simple. And for handling bounds, I'm going to choose handle bounds platform simple. Now, a couple of things to note. Some of the differences between tile collision in, say, my top-down game and this game is obviously there's in the physics there's gravity involved, and in the tile collision there's stopping me from vertical motion when I hit a tile from the top and things like that don't exist in my top-down game. So the physics engines are different and the bounds are different, because I might want to make it so if I get to the bottom of the screen I die, or I might want to make it sort of Metroidvania style where I get to the bottom of the screen and I go to the screen below me. Same thing with up. I might want up to cap me so I can't get any higher, or I might want to jump up like Battle Kid and be on the next screen, right? So there's no right or wrong way. And what I've done is with the bounds especially, check this out. I've went ahead and made this super simple. So I go to routines, go to system, and go to scripts. And I'm going to look at the platform handle bounds code. It's really kind of cool when I get to the bottom of the screen. Right now, I've got it where if I get to the bottom of the screen, it's going to go to the screen below me. And this explains all that. If I want it to kill me when I get to the bottom of the screen, all I have to do is uncomment this, because if it returns from the subroutine, it's not going to get to this part of the code, so it'll handle the death and then it'll do this, and it won't ever see this stuff. If I want to change again, I just got to comment these two lines of code out again, and it's going to skip that and go to changing the map screen. And the same thing with up and vertical bounds. Sorry. Where did I have that? Right here, if I want to use the top as a boundary, I want to do this. But if I want to I want it to lead to a map screen, then I would comment using the top as a boundary, and I would uncomment, go to the screen above me, like that. So that's how simple I've made one code base to provide very different experiences using that bounds. Now you could just, you could make two completely separate codes, one called platform simple Mario, which, if you fall to the bottom, you die, and platform simple Mega Man, where if you get to the top or bottom, it takes you to the next screen. You could do that too, and then you could come back over here and choose the one you want from the drop-down list. But I've made it really easy to just, comment and uncomment, and I've put in big bold letters, what to do where to make those differences. So now that I've got that set up, I'll minimize this. I've got my code set up. I've got everything set up. I'm ready to actually test the game now. Oops, what do I have still open? I'm sorry. Still have that open. Sorry. Okay. So I'm ready to test the game, and he's going to show up right here. And I haven't made a character yet. So that's the last thing I have to do is actually make my character. And I'm going to make him really simple. I'm not going to make any keys do anything like that. So I'm going to go to player. And I don't even know if I've got any graphics loaded yet. So I'm going to go to pixel editor. Let's see. For my player. Where is it? Game object tiles. No, I do not. So no problem. I'm going to go to beta assets, graphics, and pull in player tiles. So these are going to be my player tiles. Now these, I don't want to, if I translate it through this palette, this is what it's going to look like. He's not going to use the overworld grassland. He's going to use monster palette. So I'm comfortable with knowing that this is what I want. The only thing I don't have here is a climbing sprite for my ladder, which I'll have to create. So in order to create that, let's do this. I'm going to use this space right here because it's not being used. And I'm going to use this guy. I'm going to put him right there, and I'm going to sort of like, let's see, put his hand up here, and his shirt coming down like this, and maybe I'll make it look like his leg is up, which his shoe was blue like this, and like that. So now it looks like he's climbing. And I don't know, I don't actually even need him facing the other way at all. And since this is symmetrical, what I'll do is I'll kind of make it look like this other hand is on a ladder by doing this, and maybe make it look like, I don't know, this is going to look a little bit better to give the illusion of climbing, and you'll see when I put it together. This would be the one side of him, this would be the other, and they'd flip. He's going to be a really weird looking climber, but it's definitely going to look like something different than just regular motion. So I'm going to save that real quick. I've got a player, I've got his explosion, I'm going to save that. And I'm going to also save it to graphic assets and player tiles, or game object tiles. No, I'm not going to replace it. This is actually a different size, so I'm actually going to copy this. Control C. Oops, Control C. What's going on here? Control C. There we go. I think I had extra pixel selected. Now I'm going to open graphic assets, game object tiles, and I'm going to paste them into the top corner here. There we go. That's more what I'm looking for. So if I want to see what that climb looks like now, I can see how bad this is. So let me put this guy here and this guy. And obviously I'm not being very conservative with tile. Yeah, so that's going to look hilarious with him like climbing that way, but that's okay. Hilarity is fine, and I've got all the rest of this room for more animations and things like that if I think of things to add that I want to be more game objects. So let's make a player. Oops. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't save that. Let's do that again. Let's select all this. And Hud Assets. I did it just to really show you what it was that I was doing, so you can get that reinforcement. There you go. And I'm not going to bother. I know that they kind of work, so I'm not going to put them together. That's the right side of his climbing. That's the left side of his climbing. I can remember that. So save that. Now I've saved it. Yes, I want to reload it. Okay, good. So now if I go to player, and I by default want him facing to the right, this is where I'm defining my player's subpalette. So let me just call this one player subpalette and rename it. And I want his skin tone to be sort of this color, his hair to be brown, his shirt, I would usually make it blue, but the background is blue. So let me make it more of a reddish color, like that. Sure. And I want him from the start facing to the right. So he's 2 by 2. I'm going to manage the animation. I'm going to call this stand right. And I'm going to rename it. And this will be the default animation. So standing to the right. Like that. Okay, and I'm not going to worry about any of the other animations. I am going to go to object details. All of his poses right now are standing to the right. That's fine. I need to make sure that I have that he is persistent and a player. The only object that becomes persistent is the player object. He's the only one that I'm going to use this way. I'm not going to worry about giving a speed or a health or experience, nothing yet. I'm also going to not worry about animations, but I'm going to give him a bounding box, and it's going to be approximately right here. Now I've noticed for platform games, sometimes it's better to leave the one line so he doesn't get stuck in the floor. I don't know. Otherwise, it kind of looks like he's floating a little bit. But then if you draw with 1 pixel offset, you can't line up background and pixel and sprites if you wanted like something to be both a background and a sprite. So there's 2 ways to handle it. I'm just going to leave his feet sort of open like this. Feel free to do that or not do that. And now I've got a player. The last thing I have to do is I do have to do 1 piece of input because it's going to start me on a start screen, and I haven't told it what to do on the start screen yet. So I need to go to code scripts. I'm going to save this guy. All saving does, he's automatically saving, but all saving does is update his image over here. If I go to code scripts, I at least need to go to user scripts and start button, start screen. I need to load that in. Now, if I look at that, this is what that's doing. It's actually changing. If I press the start button, I want it to change the state. So I go to input editor. I say if I'm on the start screen and I press the start button, not worried about the target, what script am I running? Start screen. And I add the script. So now if I press the start screen, press the start button on the start screen, it's going to do the start screen code stuff, which is going to take me to the first screen. Right now my start screen is just going to be a black screen. It's not going to look like anything. Let's take a look. Export and test. We're finally at the point where we're testing. And let's see if I screwed anything up. I press start and there we go. So I've got, you saw how easy it was. It wasn't quick, that's for sure, but I was able to sort of get this stuff in that quick. And my level, my player, my HUD, I gotta see why it's putting on that extra E, but we'll get to that in a second. So let's start actually making some things happen. I think I know why it's creating the extra E, but it's something I'll have to fix in code. It's duplicating the very last thing that it's doing. It's cycling 1 more loop through, and I've got to tell it to turn itself off. That's okay. It may or may not be fixed by the time you get this, but I can show you a shortcut to sort of get rid of that as a problem for the time being. But let's make the start screen. Let's at least make it black. And let's. Here's what we're going to do. We are going to go to our pixel editor and we're going to open. If we go to, let's see, beta assets, graphics, No, I don't have the start screen tiles here. So what I can do is I'm going to go to my CHR viewer. I'm going to load a CHR file. And I do have NESmaker start screen CHR. That's the CHR file to make the NESmaker logo. So what I can do now is I can export this as a BMP, and I can call this BMP, something like this. And now if I go to my pixel editor, I can open up NESmaker BMP. So now I actually have the what shows up on my start screen. I can save this as I want to be my start screen CHR. So I want it to be this guy. Overwrite it. And now if I go to my start screen, it's going to show me that over here. And I can actually import a name table, which I also gave you the NESmaker name table. And now I've got this as my, I don't know what it's doing to the rest of that, but I don't know why it's not loading the entire start screen graphics here. But let's see this again real quick. If I open this up, let's see if I save BMP file as. Well, it's all there, so I'm not 100% sure why we're not seeing it all over here. I'm curious what happens if I test the game right now. I should see the start screen, the NESmaker start screen. The colors will be all off, but at least there we go. So something's not happening in the interface, but it's all loading. It looks like it's not loading all the graphics to the interface, but it is actually loading it. So now if I press start, here we are in the actual game. Cool. So disregard this. I'm not sure why it's not fully loading the start screen graphics. I wonder if I click off and on. No. Okay. Well, we'll figure that out in a second. But first of all, let's bring in some code scripts to get our character to start moving around the game. So if we go to code scripts and I go to user scripts, movement scripts, I've got some scripts specifically for this game. This platform game loaded in. So what I want to do is I want to just bring in all of these. There should be 12. And it's what happens if I press, or if I'm holding, or if I let go of directional keys. And I'm not going to use all these because, for instance, I don't have anything happening if I press the up or down key, or if I release the up or down key. But what I do want to do is I want to go to main game. If I press the right key, doesn't matter what target, I want to use the press right script. And if I hold the right key, I want to use the hold right script. And if I release the right key, I want to use the release right script. And the same thing for left. So if I press left, I get the press left script. Oops. And if I hold left, I get the hold left script. And if I release left, I get the release left script. Right? So now I should be able to move left and right. Now if I want to see what each of these does, I can go to hold left and it tells me what it does right here, and I can actually get into the code if I wanted to. I can actually make changes right here. If I wanted to go to it in, say, Notepad++, if I double clicked on it, it opens it up in Notepad++. Really, these are very similar interfaces, so feel wherever you're most comfortable in working, and it'll only open it in Notepad++ if you have Notepad++. Otherwise, it'll look for your default text editor. So yeah, we tried to color code things, and more our interface for doing code is going to be geared towards this exact tool. So you might want to get used to using it in here. But let's take a look at what happens if I export and test. Now, will he be able to jump yet? No, because I haven't told him to jump yet, but he will be able to move left and right. So, nope. Hold down and hold up. It has an unknown label. So let's take a look at that real quick. And hold down and hold. Oh, you know why? Because I have to get rid of. I said I shouldn't load the up and down, so I really shouldn't, because they actually have things that only exist in the top-down game. So I'm going to remove my up and down, so they're no longer trying to compile with the game. Sorry about that. That's just a result of me not using those in this engine. So now he should be moving, but he's not going to, because I never gave him a speed. So let me go to my player and go to details and give him a speed. And I'm going to give him sort of a slow acceleration speed, because it is a platform game. It's kind of fun to have that floaty sort of feeling. Let's see. Yeah, it makes it feel like inertia. You know, it becomes more of a skill to time your jumps and things like that when there's the inertia. So now I've got left and right rocking, but I don't have him changing graphics. So let's have him change graphics. So first of all, I need stand right, stand left. So I'm going to copy this frame. I'm going to manage animations. I'm going to add stand left. I'm also going to add walk right, and I'm going to add walk left, and I'm going to add jump right, and I'm going to add jump left. So I'm going to copy this frame, and for stand left, I'm going to paste it and flip it. So that's easy. And then for walk right, I'm going to need a 2 or 4 frame animation. I'll go with a full 4, and I'll use the same frame for 1 and 3. But for 2, I will start with this, flip it, flip it, flip it, and flip it. And I could use this for frame 4 too, but instead I'll use this. So it's slightly different. It'll make it look like his legs are kind of moving back and forth. So it kind of looks like, you know. So now for walk left, I'm going to go through and I'm going to paste and flip all these walk right frames. So I'm going to copy that. Walk left, I'm going to go to frame 2. Paste, flip. I'm going to go to frame 3. Paste and flip. I'm going to go to frame 4. Paste and flip. So now I've got standing left, standing right, walking left, walking right. I also need climb is one of the other ones that I have to do. So, but let me do jump, which is really just going to be 1 frame, and you could make it more than 1 frame. I'm going to use just this guy right here, I guess, for jumping for now. I could make a custom. Oops. I could make a custom one that, you know, had his arm up in the air and his legs a little different, and you could totally do that. I would recommend doing that, but this'll do for now. I'm going to copy this, go to jump left, paste it, flip it, and then I'm also going to add climb, rename that one, and for climb, he's going to be this. Whoops. For climb, sorry, he's going to be this and this. That's his one frame per climb. And his other frame is this flipped. So the climbing is going to look like that, which is the most awkward climb I've seen since 5th grade gym class. Okay, so now we've got that. I'm going to go to object details, and I need to actually make and assign those animations. So I'm going to rename this guy stand. I'm going to add walk. I'm going to add jump. And I'm going to add climb. So for stand, I need to choose which animations go with stand. So I'm going to use right, 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 and then left, 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 left. I don't have an up direction for this or a down direction for this. So I only have the two animations. Same thing here, right, right, and these should be walk right, walk right, walk right, walk right. But this is important for games where you do have 8 potential directions. Walk left, jump, jump right, jump left, and then climb. They're all going to be climb. Okay, so now I've got those, and lastly I'm going to go to actions. Now I've already got this built where these first 4 action steps are associated with those 4 animations. That's already in the script. I've got them changing action step depending on his state, what you're doing, what your input is. So for action step 0, it's going to be stand. For action step 1, it's going to be walk, and you want to give him in some level of animation. For action step 2, it's going to be jump, and for action step 3, it's going to be climb, and again you want to give him some level of animation. I'm not worried about any of this stuff right now. So now my player should change direction. He should change states. I don't have a way for him to jump. I haven't told him to do that yet. So he's not going to be able to jump yet, but we're going to do that in the next step. So I'm going to hit export and test. And now he actually runs as we would expect. So now let's make him jump. Let's see something real quick. That's right. Yep. Okay. So now let's make him jump. I'm going to go to code scripts, user scripts, and I think I have something called a jumps and a release for variable jumping. So those are both important because you want to be able to jump different types based on how long you have the A button held down. When you let go of the A button, it should sort of let go. If I look at the script, I can determine how high I want him to jump. So this is how high he's jumping. That's setting his vertical speed. And this is how high he jumps if he's hitting a bounce tile. So if I want to change how high he jumps, I can just change this number right here. If I want to change how high he jumps on a jump tile, I can change this number here. Eventually you're going to be able to set these with some constants and things like that inside the game, but for right now it's really easy to just change those values. So for this I'm going to go to input editor, and I've got this happening in the main game. When I press the A button, my other target, he's going to use A button jumps. When I release the A button, he's going to use the A button release for variable jumping, which basically cuts his vertical speed. So he keeps a little bit of upward momentum, but he not full on upward momentum. So now if I test, I should start to be able to jump around, and all the physics and things are going to be able to be observed. So that's solid, remember? So good. So this is working out pretty well so far. I know it's taking a while, but if you think about all the stuff that I'm actually doing, it's not all that long. So I don't think I can get up there. Yeah, okay. So let's say I want to make that a little bit more interesting so I can get up to that spot. Go back to my overworld. I want to be able to get on those trees. Maybe I'll put either a floating platform or maybe just a couple of boxes. Maybe just a boxes like that. And now I should be able to get up to that spot. There you go. And so now it's behaving like a platform game should. And let's say I want to have the app. Now that's an example of me going to the next screen, but I don't have a next screen, right? So it's all showing me the 0 tiles, which are just those weird values you see right there. Let's make it so I can go down into either I could continue on in the world and explore, or I can go down into the dungeon. So let's make a dungeon real quick underneath that. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to click on the screen underneath it. And instead of using main tiles 0, I'm going to use main tiles 1. And I'm going to use my Underworld dungeon. And automatically filled in that 0 tile, which is that brick, which definitely is cool. From above, I want a ladder to take me down there. So I need to put a ladder top wherever I want that top to be, wherever I want to be able to go down into that. And unfortunately, right now, I can't see where the HUD starts. I know in my mind, this is where it's going to pick up. It doesn't matter. I can do this. All that's going to be overwritten anyway, so I can do that if I want. But let's start building. Let's start building what this should look like here. I'm not actually going to see anything until I can copy this. I can paste it. I'm not going to see either of these rows. This is where the screen's actually going to start right here. So this is going to be the first row I actually see, and I just know that because I know the size of my HUD. So I'm going to make 2 rows that I can actually see, and if I want to make that clear, I could, do something like that, just so I could see where that's going to be. And I want my ladder to come down a little bit further, and so I can get off into a, let's see. And let's make the ground. I love the way that color scheme plays. Really kind of cool. The blues against the oranges and yellows. So we're going to do that, and maybe I'll make a vine that you can get back up there if you want, and just trying to think of some cool looking things to put in here. For right now, let's just stick to what we're seeing. Maybe I'll add some spikes here like that, and then we'll do something like that. Okay, so for now I've got 2 screens, and I've got a ladder that I can climb down into this screen. Let's test that real quick. So I can get on the ladder and I climb. And notice I never changed my HUD colors here. So let me go, and I need to change the HUD colors to these. So let's fix that real quick. Remember, I updated these. I swapped them around. So it's light blue, dark blue, white, and maroon. So it's light blue, dark blue. I can't change the light blue, but that's why I didn't use any of the HUD. White and maroon are flipped. So white and maroon are flipped. And now, I told you that climbing would look funny, but it does suggest climbing, so that's doing its job. So I can come down here, and I can come down here, and I could climb back up my vine here, and I got to make this top one. I forgot to make this top one a ladder top, so let me do that real quick. Dungeon vine and then dungeon vine top. That way I can stand on it. The game engine handles them slightly differently. So if I do this, now I can stand on it without falling, or I can press down and I can get on top of it. All right, so now I'll die, but I haven't told it what die means yet. So I need to do that. Let's start dealing with like HUD and health and lives and things like that. So first, let's make a death object. And the death object that I'm going to use is effect 0. So I'm going to call this death. And I'm going to save it. Right now, the way that death works in this game is that it gets rid of my player, and in place, it puts this effect 0, this death object in its place. And when that death object's animation is over, I'm going to set that to restart the game and basically lose a life. All right. So I need to use this second sub palette here for this explosion, which I want to sort of be white so that you can really see it. And I don't know what colors I want it to be, but I need to make sure that I'm not using the same sub palette for this second sub palette. So I'm going to use this monster palette 1, and I'm going to call this game object sub pal. Now understand that this right here is controlling on the player. This is controlling what 2 sub palettes are used for the player and game objects. All right. So when I go down here, if I were to change it here, this doesn't mean anything. This is just for reference so I can see the colors as I'm building stuff. These are the colors that it's actually selecting for the game. So to test it, I probably want to be using the same colors so I can see what's going on. So what I'll do is for the second sub palette, I want this to be white or maybe yellow, and I want it to be 2 by 2. And I'm going to just go ahead and flip horizontal, flip vertical, and flip both horizontal. Oops, I used the wrong one here. There we go. We're gonna make this. I'm gonna make this this animation 4 frames, and then I'm gonna make the second frame. I'm gonna copy this frame. Oops. Copy this frame. Go to second frame, paste it, and that way I'm preserving the flips, so it's easy for me just to go in and do this, and then I'm going to go to frame 3, paste, and I'm going to use the third frame of that, and you can see how that's making like a little explosion, and the last frame it kind of dissipates completely. And then what I want to do is I want to call this, let's manage animations, and we'll call this one explode, and we're going to add one called nothing, and with nothing it's just going to be 1 frame of black, and I need to remember that I kept that one as fully black, and I'll go to object details and I will make explode and nothing, and for explode they should all be explode, and for nothing they should all be nothing. And what that's going to allow me to do is create some time after the explosion before the game restarts. So the game will keep going for a second, and then the game will restart after the nothing animation is done, the 1 frame animation. So what I am going to do is, these are incorrect action step flags for this. So I'm going to fix what these say. This should say ignore physics. This should say ignore gravity. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into project labels, and I'm going to go to monster action step flags. This shouldn't say invincible anymore. This should say alternative physics. Not really ignore physics, just alternative physics. And this should say ignore, this should say ignore gravity. So now when I look at details. I can use alternative physics and ignore gravity, and that will make it so that this doesn't fall. Like we just saw a second ago when I went to the spikes, it created the little top left corner of the head, that graphic right there, and it fell. The next thing I want to do is at the end of the animation of the explosion, I want it to advance at the end of the animation. I'm going to give it a pretty fast speed. Then it's going to go to the second action step, which is going to show nothing for a short time. Put 3 right here. And when the action timer is done, it's going to restart the game, which actually we've changed to lose life. And that's also going to use ignore gravity and alternate physics. So we've changed restart the game to what happens when you lose a life. And so now, when this guy runs into that spike, it should turn into this death animation, and then that death animation should lose a life and sort of restart from wherever your last checkpoint was. So let's take a look. Boom. Now I'm gonna get rid of. I was wrong about one thing. Let me get rid of. It's not going to use alt physics. Alt physics is going to automatically assign him a direction and a motion, but we do want it to ignore gravity. So let's try that. And that's what we want to have happen. And it restarts. And it restarts from my last checkpoint, which at this point is the beginning of the game. All right, so that's cool, but let me show health and lives up here and that's going to get rid of this problem, by the way, when I do this. I'm going to show health and lives and score up here, and I'm going to show you guys how to do that. Let's do this. We're going to go to HUD and boxes, and right now we're going to go to HUD Elements, and what we want to do is we want to draw the number of health that we have right here and the number of lives we have right here, and the score we want it to be right here. And there's no right or wrong number to each of these. I like to keep it sort of symmetrical. So this says health, so I'll give it 6, 1 for each letter. So these are each of the text strings. This element number 4 is we're going to use variable tiles, and we can set what the full tile looks like and what the empty tile looks like. So the empty tile for health is going to look like that, and the full tile is going to look like that. And this is going to be for health, and the max value is going to be 6. And don't worry about what's full or what's empty. That's just showing you side by side what they look like. It's making half of the tiles full and half the tiles empty. And so now we got 6. And the string is the variable that it's going to follow. And we have a variable called global player1 health. And that's something that's already set up. And there's also global player1 lives and global player1 score. Those are things that already are set up in this engine. And so we're going to do the same sort of thing with lives. I'm going to go to element 5 and go to variable tiles. And I'm going to make, let's see, an empty tile is going to be, I don't know, this thing, and a full tile is going to be this thing, maybe, or you know what, empty tile will just be blank, and a full tile will be this guy. So we want max value of 3, maybe, and then that's going to be right there. And don't worry about only seeing the one. Don't forget there's 2 being drawn invisibly right here. If I increase this, it's showing me half of the tiles full and half of them empty, just so I can see both of them. If I tell it that its lives are going to be 3, it'll draw 3 lives here. And then I need to draw the score, which is actually going to be a number. And it's going to have, how many places is the score going to have? Let's say 5, so it fits underneath score, and it's going to use global player1 score. And let's move score. And I can't remember, did I tell this? No, I didn't. So lives is going to be controlled by global player one lives. All right. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I'm starting with 6 health and I'm starting with 3 lives. So I go to player to set my health. This is the object I'm dealing with, whose health I'm dealing with. And right here, how much health do I have? Well, he's going to start with 6 health. And as far as lives, I have to actually, for now, I have to get into code to do this, and I'll show you where that is. If you go to system, if you go to routines, variables, and there's one called user variables. This is where they're set. So these are the variables that exist in the game. These are the ones that I was just referencing, and these are the ones that control what graphic gets updated in HUD. You don't have to worry about these if you're using this engine. But we're going to make it really easy for you to make your own, and instead of having to get into the code to change them, you'll be able to do it from inside the tool like a lot of the other things. So I need to set my player health, and where I set my player health, I'm in the wrong spot, is in the init file. So if I go to game engine data, routines, initialization scripts, and init loads, this is where I'm setting my score. This is going to be set by my player, so don't worry about that. But I do need to set my player lives, and I don't see where player lives is actually being set here. There you go, global player lives. That should be up here. I want to set it to 3 lives to start instead of 5. So 3 lives to start. Now, if I test my game, and now we can see the E went away over here. Health, lives, score. It looks like I maybe did the health backwards. But if I lose life, now you can see I've only got 2 lives. And if I lose 3 lives, it'll start the game over again. And now I'm back to 3 lives again. Let me just make sure real quick I didn't screw up health here. HUD Elements, health. My full tile is supposed to be this guy, and my empty tile is supposed to be this guy. And maybe it's just the color of the thing is weird. So let me take a look at my pixel editor, and I'm going to open up my HUD tiles, and I'm gonna use it. Let's see, to see what this will actually look like. I'm gonna translate it through my palette, and I got to remember I reversed these, and that's what I'm seeing. These should almost be reversed now because this is what it looks like. What I'm gonna do is, to make this easy, is, let's see. I'll make a full heart white, like opaque, and an empty heart. You can see the outline of it. So let me save that, and now I'll test my game. And now you'll see a white heart appear there. There we go. So now I have 6 health, 3 lives, and a score of 0. Again, pretty cool that we've got this much functionality already. We're 90 minutes in, and we have something that really starts to feel like the start to a game, and honestly, way better than a lot of the lesser NES catalog already. So let's keep going with this. I'm gonna grab a drink of water here. Give me 2 seconds. I've been talking for 90 minutes, so forgive me. Okay. So what's next? Let's build a couple of things. Let's try a couple different assets just for kicks. Let's use this bouncy tile so we can get back up there. So instead of this right here, I'm gonna F5 all this. So I've got this bouncy tile instead, and I can even put this in the floor, I think, and it'll work. I'm not sure if that's going to be a good idea or not, but let's put it right there so I can actually bounce back up. And let's test this bouncy tile and see if this works. And now, there we go. And now I can use the bouncy tile to get back up there if I wanted to, instead of climbing. So that's cool. All right, let's start building. Let's make a monster and get a monster moving around in here, and a monster block that has him sort of moving back and forth. And yeah, let's do that. So let's go to Monster Graphics Banks and Graphics Bank 0 and Monsters. I don't have any monsters loaded, so I'm just going to use the Mystic Search's little bug monster guy that was created for us. And let's see. So I've got in the beta assets, graphics, I've got this little bug monster guy. Open him up. And I'm just going to use this. Now, I've got way too many colors here, if you notice. We went through this in older tutorials. So I'm going to copy this guy. Actually, I'll copy the whole thing. But first I got to get it. I'm going to get it to red, green, blue. So I'm not worried about this translation colors right now. I do know that I want this to be black and I want this to be not black. So I really need to flip these two colors. I need to change. So I'll make this blue right now, and then I'll flip them. I'll flip black for blue, swap black for blue. That's more what I want. And I'll make this main color red. And that's not the color red, that's the value 0, or the value 1, I mean, that's whatever's here. And then I'll also make this dark blue, which would be this color. And this will be white. So now I've got black, red, green, blue, and it'll basically be black and then sort of yellow, a reddish color, and then a dark blue color, and then white for the eyes. So I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste it into, oops, yeah, I keep doing that. I grabbed just off the screen over there. Control C, open graphic assets, and I'm going to go to my monster 00 and paste it in to the top left corner like that. Nope, missed it. No, I got it. Okay, sorry, it was just the copy was a little funny. I'm going to save it, and now I'm going to start building a monster. So I'm going to go to monsters, and I need a new sub palette, so I'm going to call this guy monster sub pal and rename it. And don't worry, again, the screen is actually going to determine what colors the monsters are. This is just for reference. So I'm going to make a sub palette here. It doesn't necessarily mean that this monster is going to use the sub palette. Let's make him walk. So I'm going to give him a 2 frame, and he's 2 by 2, and he's going to be, blue is going to be like a reddish orangish color. This is a white, and this is the darkest sort of shade of blue. I might not want to use that because my background underground I think is that color, so maybe I'll use black for that. Now keep in mind this is transparent, so you know, whatever I put here, it doesn't really matter. I can put that there for now. I'm going to make it black, so actually I'll just leave it whatever there. So that's what he'll look like against the sky. So let me make 2 animations, one for him walking left. I'm going to add walking right, and that's it for this guy. So walking left, he's going to look like this. Frame 1. I'm going to copy it, paste, flip. That's, oh, I'm sorry. I'm not paying attention. No, I'm not. I'm going to give him a second frame of copy, paste, I'm not going to flip him at all. I'm just going to give him a second frame of walking animation like that. So that's walk left, and then I'm going to copy this, go walk right, paste, and I'll just go to frame 2, copy, walk right, frame 2, paste, and then these guys I got to flip. Okay, so walking right will look like this. Perfect. So that's a little monster. Let's give him some details. I'm going to give him 2 animations. So this is going to be walk left, or this is just walk, I'm sorry. And then I'm determining his right, and left. Details. He is going to, when he hits a solid, he's going to reverse direction. When he hits the edge, he's going to reverse direction. I'm not worried about hurt type or spawn type. I'll give him a couple of health. Maybe I got to hit him a couple of times to die when I finally do make that a weapon for me. He is a monster, so I want to make sure I click on monster type. And I'm going to give him a speed and make him sort of move slow but accelerate fast. His actions, he is going to use the walk animation, and he's going to use, I believe this should now say move in 2 directions, but let me make sure that I didn't do that somewhere else. Let's take a look at these. If I go to routines, user scripts, movement scripts, I'm sorry, that's not what I'm looking for. AI routines, and I look at 6. Nope, there's nothing there. Let's take a look at 5. 5 is shooting at the players. That's not what I want. Let's take a look at 2. Yes, so I changed 2 to choose out of 2 directions instead of choose out of 4 directions for this engine. And if I forget that, let me close this real quick. I'm going to save this as bug monster so I can come back to him. Don't forget to save your monsters. Okay, so he's in there now. If I go to project labels and I go to action types, this should no longer say move 4 directions. This should say random of 2 directions. So now if I go back to my monster, I go to object details and I go to actions, I can take a look, and now it says move 2 directions. So you can again change all these labels. These are just references for you as you're creating. And I'm going to give him, he's sort of got a, he's not going to actually change it all, he's just going to keep looping. So he gets to the end of his action and he just loops. Because what's going to make him change direction, he's going to keep walking until he hits a monster tile. And we're going to take a look at how to add a monster tile real quick. So a monster tile is something that the hero is not going to interact with, but the monster is. I'm going to make a monster group out of all bug monsters, and I'm going to call it bugs. Save it. And in my overworld, I'm not going to put any on the first screen, but on this screen I'm going to say that my day monsters, I want bugs. And what sub palette do I want? That monster sub palette. This is what I was talking about before. Here is where you're actually setting the real colors that this screen uses for the monsters. When I was creating it, I was just using a reference palette. This is, if I change this, if I did this, those are the colors he's going to appear at on the screen. I want those to be the colors. So I'm going to select the same palette that I created him with, but what I created him with, that's not necessarily the palette that's going to be used. This determines the palette that's going to be used. So now I'm going to place one of these monsters right here. Oops, place monster 1 right there. And when he hits this, I'm not sure if he's going to bounce off a solid block, bounce block or not. So I'm going to put a monster block here and a monster block here, and he's going to go back and forth between the 2 of those things. My character does not interact with a monster barrier like that. Now I don't have any monster barriers set up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my graphics banks and assets, and I'm going to go, I'm trying to set this up for the Underworld dungeon, right? So I'm going to use this tile set. I don't want to see the backdrop at all. So I'm going to make something that looks just like the backdrop, have a monster block collision type, and I'm going to call it monblock. And this is an even cooler thing. So I got monblock down here. Now, if I go to Overworld and I go to my screen, there's two ways I can do this. I can just apply it to, I can just click, or once I have it selected, and let's see if I get the wrong key. I thought it was. Nope, never mind. Yes, okay, I'm doing it right. I'm sorry. So if I hit the 7 key, nope. If I hit the 8 key, nope. If I hit the 9 key, nope. If I hit the 0 key, if I hit the 6 key, no. Okay, so we must have removed that for those keys. So I am going to have to make an asset for it and pop it there and pop one there. There's a way that you could actually assign just the collision data of the tile, but I think we removed it when we changed the key bindings for this. But now that monster is going to hit this monster block and that monster block and should go back and forth between these two monster blocks. So let's take a look at that real quick. Let's see if that works. Oh, you know what? I didn't quite finish out my monster. I'm sorry. I didn't quite finish out my monster. I never gave him a collision box. So I gave him actions. I never gave him a collision box, and I also never gave him an animation speed, which I definitely want to do. So let's take a look. There he is. And why is he freaking out? It's probably because this is the issue I was talking about, where his feet are actually in the ground. So I'm going to leave him 1 pixel of space, and it has to do with where he's being drawn. Just like my player, I left 1 pixel of space under his feet, and it lines him perfectly up. And if I go down here, there he goes. So now he's colliding with those monster blocks. Just out of curiosity, I'm going to see if he collides with this. I think what's going to happen is he's going to hit it, and he's going to try and bounce over it. He's going to try and walk over it. Let's see real quick, though. I can't remember how I set this up for a monster block. So let's get rid of this by hitting F5. And just see what happens when he collides with that. Let's see. Does he collide? Nope, that's kind of what I thought was going to happen. So he does collide on the edge. So that's not too horrible. I don't like that he walks through that. So I'd probably I'd get into the code for this, which, you know what? That's what I'll do. I'm going to get into the code for that bounce block. Check this out. The bounce block was tile type bouncy trampoline. So here's what I'm saying. If it's the player, or if it's not the player, don't do the trampoline. So if it is the player, this is what happens right here. Let's see. I keep checking for trampoline, and so this is all. Let's make a new label called done with trampoline. So if the player's done all this, I'm going to make it done with trampoline, and instead I'm going to make this trampoline. In fact, yeah, that's fine. This is what's actually going to, this right here, I'm making code that I don't need to, so I'm sorry. Let's make this even easier. This is done with trampoline. This is what I want to have happen. So if it's not the player, I'm going to make a label right here, not a player. So I'm going to make it probably have used that somewhere else. So trampoline, not a player. And we're going to look at the logic of this in a second. So if I look at the index of the object that's calling this, if it's not equal to a player, if it's not equal to 0, which would make it a player, if it's not the same, then it's going to jump to not a player trampoline, which is just going to handle its solidity, and then jump to done with trampoline. If it is a player, it's going to do this. It's going to load the V speed. And if it's positive, that means it's going to be moving in a downward direction. It's going to check for a trampoline. If it's not moving in a downward direction, it's going to continue on, and it's going to make it solid and then go to done with trampoline. So basically, the only thing that can bounce on a trampoline is going to be the player. The monster won't bounce on a trampoline at all. It'll treat it like a solid object. I don't see why I couldn't make the monster bounce on a trampoline too. So honestly, let's try that real quick, just for fun. If I take away the player check right now and checked if it was a monster, I don't want to do that right now. But I could probably get rid of the player check, and he could just bounce slightly when he hits the trampoline. Right now, he's going to treat it like a solid object, so he just land flat if he were to hit it. And if he hits it from the side, he's going to change direction as if it was a solid block. Let's test that. And just by making that little bit of a change to the code, I get a dramatically different output. And let's make sure that I'm not crazy. Now he changes as I would expect, and it still acts like a trampoline for me. And you notice I lost health when I ran into him, and I'm going to go down health, and I got rid of all my health and I died, and you can see it took away lives. So already like I said, we are, not even 2 hours in, and we've got so much stuff, so much functionality happening. Very cool. All right, so let's let's keep going with this. Let's make it so that there's a place I've got to get to. There's sort of a win screen over here, but I can't get to it until I get something that's down here that activates that. So I'm going to make another screen like this one. I'm actually going to duplicate this screen. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to go to my map screen. I'm going to click on it. I'm going to hit Control C, and I'm going to Control V right here. Oops. Control C and Control V. There we go. And just so that the collision data easily lined up, now I can start editing this sort of dramatically. I can edit my monster placement. I can disable that guy so that way he's not going to be there. I can get rid of this, get rid of this. And I'm going to keep that there just so I have a reference for where the HUD is. And I'll place this here. And now I can make this room look different. I could build big bricks. So this is a solid wall. And show you a quick trick as well. Let's just do this. If I wanted this to be blue like these, I wouldn't have to necessarily make a whole other asset. What I can do is my QWERTY keys, Q, W, E, and R, they will change the palette. So I want to change it to 0, 1, 2, that's Q, W, E. If I hold the E and just draw over the top, it automatically changes the sub palette that those tiles are using. Still maintains the collision data, still maintains the asset, but changes the color. So now I have this walled off screen, and I have I need something here. I need a item here, so I'm gonna have to make a new item. But let's make a screen that's somewhat interesting first. Let's have maybe the ground drops out here, and I have this Sydney Hunter Bridge, and I don't have any blank tiles, which I could use this, and I want that to be the first sub out like that. So that looks intimidating, and then maybe I've got more spikes to jump, and I want those to be the first sub palette, so I'll hit the Q key. Now I can't really see those all that well, which is kind of obnoxious. maybe I'll do this, and so I got to jump over that, and maybe I've got to jump, or maybe I've got to climb up to here to get to this platform, and I'll use this one right here, and this is going to be a vine top. So, and then I'm going to put something up here that's going to change the state. I actually don't really like this. I would rather have these spikes be down like that. A little more obvious that they're spikes. There's something to avoid. And I could, do all kinds of things here, like, I don't know. I could build a ladder and put more solid, so I have to do more to get somewhere. But instead, I'm just going to use the bugs, and I'm going to do the same kind of thing. I'm going to place a monster here. I'm going to place a monster up here. And I'm going to put those monster blocks here. And I'll let him walk all the way across to here. Put the monster block there, and I'll let him move all the way across to there. And I'm going to put something up here. And similarly, I'm going to make a screen here, and I'm going to use this as my reference to know where to put stuff, which would be here. And I'm going to make a whole ground here, and some ground here. All right, and I'm going to make a tall, I'll make, where was that? Those bricks. So these are background bricks. These are, you can walk through these. So this is almost like my castle here. And I'll put, this at the top, like this, and I'll put the door here like this, and maybe I've got this lock around the door like this, and so I need to get the idle or whatever it's going to be to get into that door, because all these are solid. That's solid, that's solid, that's solid. I can't get past any of that stuff. And I need a way to get up there, so maybe I've got some trees. I've got this tree, which if I set my paths, I can make a little tree here that I could jump up to, and then I could make a bigger tree next to it. And maybe on this tree I've got, bounce tile, so I can get up there and then bounce up or bounce over here or whatever. But I can't really get up there yet until I figure out how to get rid of these. And I can put monsters in here, and I can make the clouds. In fact, this is going to be a problem. I just thought of this. This row is going to be off the screen. So let me bring this down like that. And this row is going to actually be off the screen because the HUD. So there we go. And I can make this more interesting. I'm just trying to do some really quick stuff, guys. So some locks. So that lets you know that, oh, that's locked. I get it. I can't get in there yet. Maybe some boxes just to make it look a little bit more visually interesting. Some blocks to maybe make you think you can get up there, but you can't get up there yet. Whatever. Okay, so let me play through what I've got here so far and just take a look at everything. So my goal is to get into here. So they shouldn't have changed yet. Let's see. So he must have, let's see, he's not seeing that as solid. And so there's a couple things we can do. We can get into his code and make him see this vine as solid, or we could just make it so he doesn't go all the way to the edge there. And that's also fine. So let's do that real quick just to make this quick and easy. I'll make a monster block here, and then he won't be able to get all the way to the vine. Or I could get into the vine's code and make sure that he's seeing that as a solid object, which he's probably not at this point. Okay, so let's see. This is all monsters lock. I really don't know why those changed. They shouldn't have changed because this is not a saved screen. Oh, they're monster locks. I'm sorry. What I want them to be is not monster locks at all. I want them to be, there's no monsters on that screen. So yeah, it's a monster lock. In fact, I'll show you where I'll use those. That's my fault. So I'm going to put a monster lock here, all monster locks here. A monster lock means that there's no more monsters on the screen. And I'll make that gray like that. And that's fine. Then I'm gonna have to get rid of this guy and put him. That's okay. Okay, so this is where my whatever is gonna be, and I'm gonna have to defeat this guy in order to beat that, in order to get in here. I get rid of all the monsters. I don't have a way to do that yet, but you'll get the idea in a second. What I wanted that to be, this is my fault, what I wanted that to be is not a monster lock, but instead I wanted it to be a all pickups lock. So this is going to be pickup lock, which only activates if all the pickups are gone, or if the screen is triggered. Okay, so go back to that screen, and this, instead of monster locks, I want this to be a pickup lock and pickup lock 2. All right, so now these are solid. I can't get in there. I can jump high if I can even get up there. Now I could be on top of it, which is going to get me stuck, so I've got to think about that when I'm planting the screen above this one. Make sure I can't fall into this screen. So now what I can do is, let's make an object that I can get, and we're going to place it in a more fun, in a better place, but I'm going to make something that I need to collect. So let's do this. I should have some graphics over here that would make something relatively interesting, like the sword. Oh yes, that would be much cooler. Let me go to pixel editor, open up monster. Let's see. Let's make a sword real quick. So I'm going to look at 16 by 16. I want to make a sword using, doesn't really matter. I'm just going to use red, green, blue, and I'm going to use the first color. In fact, I should make a key actually. Really crappy key. Okay. Come on. Key. And maybe I'll give it some depth. Like that. Now it's a key. Awesome. A terrible F key. So I'm going to save that. And I'm going to go to monsters. And I'm going to make another subpalette here. So this is what this monster is using. This is what the key is going to use. So real quick, just that's irrelevant because that's going to be the transparent color. But I want this dark blue to be like a gold, and I want the white to be like an orange, like that maybe. And I can even get in here and spot edit this if I want. So I want that to be a little bit wider so you can really tell what it is. Like that. And maybe I'll edit that to just 1 pixel. Like that. So now I'm going to make another monster group, and I'm going to make it a bug monster. Oh, forgot to save. I'm sorry. I'm going to make this, let's see, 2 by 2. Key. Save this as key. And I need to go in and assign some things to this. Like first of all, I'm going to go to object details, and there's no animation, but it is a pickup power up. So I'm going to click on that. No health, no solid reactions, not moving anywhere. There's no action, there's no animation unless I wanted there to be animation. It's probably going to ignore gravity, and its bounding box is going to be like that. All right, so hit save, and now I've got a key. If I go to monster groups, I can make one that's got maybe 2 bug monsters and a key. And I'll call this bugs and key. And for right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that, I'm going to change the screen info, and instead of bugs and key, and I'll put a bug monster and a bug monster. Oops. And, you know, I'm going to put the key up here, which I'll have to jump to, just to show the idea here. Now, if I look at the screen info, what palette am I using for the second palette? I want to use that game object sub palette. So there we go. There's an example of the screen controlling the color, not the color that I created the thing with, and I just set it to that. Now, what is going to happen when I get this key? It's going to get rid of all of the pickup locks that are associated with whatever screen type I'm on. Now I'm on screen type 0, which means all of the screen type 0s are going to change to saved. All these screens so far have been screen type 0, and if I look at the monsters, for instance, on the screen, if it's saved, if it's triggered, there's no monsters here. I don't want to trigger this screen in particular, or I don't want to trigger all these screens and make the monsters go away. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my screen info to 1, and I'm going to set this screen info to 1. And now all of my screen 1s are going to show just the triggered monsters, which will look like that. It'll look the same on this screen. And it'll also get rid of, when this screen loads, it won't load any of the pickup locks. Now, I have a feeling it's going to load a weird graphic. That's kind of what we already saw, but the collision data will be correct. We'll have to figure out what tile to replace it with. It's probably going to replace it with the 0 tile, so it might look weird, but the collision will be there, and I'll be able to get to this door. So let's just take a look at what happens. so I'll come down here. And now he bounces off of that. And those monsters. I'll get that key. Now, I can't really see what happened there, but if I go off and come back on, those monsters are gone. And I can get up through here now. And I can get up, more importantly, to the door. And the door didn't lead me anywhere, but you can see how I could get in there. Now, what I'm going to do, I don't want this to go away. I want to have to defeat the monsters for this to go away. I want these monsters to be there whether it's normal or it's triggered. So all I have to do for that is go to screen info, and on its day triggered monsters, I need to say I want bugs on the screen if it's day triggered. I don't want the key if it's triggered, but I want the same monsters. Place monster 1, place monster 2, and I'll make sure that I've got the right. I don't. Let me make sure that I've got the right. There we go. Okay, so now that's not going to go away anymore because that's a monster block. And what I really want to do is I want the key to go inside here. So I have to actually defeat these. Oops, sorry, monster 3. I have to actually defeat these monsters in order to get to that key. When I defeat them, this is going to go away. And I gotta find out why it's drawing that weird tile. I probably did a closed door, open door on another tile set. So let's take a look. Let's see if I can do this in code real quick. Yeah, we're not even going to worry about it. That's something I'll do offline rather than have you guys watch me do it. So now the segue here is I go here, I look, the door's locked, I can't go anywhere. I come down here, I have to fight these monsters. I don't have anything to fight them with, and that's no fun. So let's do this. Let's make it so I can shoot them. And what I'm going to do is, with my player, he creates this, which is actually his projectile. I'm going to call this projectile. And I'm going to have him create a projectile of some kind. So I'll edit this in the simple editor, and I'll just make it use the same colors that he uses for simplicity. And I'll just make it like a circular sort of fireball. Obviously, you could get much more interesting than this if you get creative. There we go. There's a fireball. Save it. Yep. Okay. Close that. And we're going to save that. Now you can see it updated over here. I'm going to make this, if I wanted to animate it, I could. This is a player weapon, and I'm going to give it a pretty fast speed and a full-on acceleration speed. It's not going to have to accelerate at all. When it hits a solid object, it's going to go away. When it hits the edge, it's going to go away. I'm going to have it destroy itself. It's actions. It doesn't have any animation. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't change. But I do want it to ignore gravity. Now, here's what's cool. If you wanted to make it not ignore gravity, it'll shoot like sort of a fireball. It'll kind of shoot down. You know, it'll fall, and that might be cool. Like it's like a little bomb. You can make that work and do some cool things with that. I'm going to give it a bounding box. Now, because the way that our engine works, these are monsters. That's a player weapon. The weapon is going to affect the monsters. So what I'm going to do with the monster real quick is I'm going to give it, so as he's already got 3 hit points, I'm going to have it worth a couple of points. For right now, what I would say is don't make your points any more than 9, 0 through 9. There's a reason for it having to do with the places and the addition and stuff. Don't worry, that's obviously going to be fixed. But for right now, just keep it between 0 and 9. And so now I want to be able to shoot this projectile. And the code that it's using to shoot a projectile is right here. Routines. Nope, actually I'm going to pull it in. So go to code scripts, user scripts, and create simple projectile with motion. So if I look at that, it's creating object 1, and I'm going to have it creating at action step 0. That's what this is saying. It's saying create the X and Y that I just figured out, which is this stuff, at object, which object are you creating? 1. This is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I created this, it would create the death object. If I created object number 8, it would create the death object. Creating object 0 would create another player. Creating object 1 would create a projectile. When the monsters start at 16, so hex value 10. So hex value 10, hex value 11. So I could create a key if I wrote 11 right here, 1, 1. This is the action step of the object. So for instance, I can make different projectiles, and I could put here the number that I wanted to use for the projectile, and that would like create. So if I had different action steps behave in different ways, so if this action step showed a different animation or a different graphic and didn't ignore gravity, then this weapon would fall and blow up, whereas this one would shoot straight, et cetera, et cetera. You get the idea. So with this, when do I want this to happen? Well, I want this to happen if I press the B button. So I'm going to go to Input Editor. When I press the B button on the main game, give it a null target. I want to create projectile with motion, add script. I can't, yeah, okay. So now the last thing I'm going to do is I want to set the weapon offset. If I go to Game Objects, now, automatically, this is going to show these first two. No matter what object I'm trying to create, it's going to show me those first two, and it's going to show me all its directions. The only directions for this character I really need to be concerned about is right, which I think could be 16, right? Nope, 17. I wanted to create like right there, and if it's left, I wanted to create like right there. Now, like I said, if you make different projectiles of different sizes, for right now, it's only going to show an 8x8 projectile. Whatever you have there, it might screw up if you try and do anything else other than that for right now. Again, obviously, we're going to make this so you can choose what object is creating what and set up a weapon offset system and stuff like that. For right now, that's how it works. If you wanted this to be a quick melee weapon, and there'd be some problems with this, but if you wanted it to be like a quick melee instead of a projectile, what you could easily do is go to actions and set a really quick timer or a really quick animation, and at the end of the animation or the end of the action, have it destroy itself. And so it would look like, now if you're moving and you haven't told it to stop your moving when you create the projectile, then it's going to look a little bit weird because it's going to stay still while you're still moving, but you get the idea. This is basically how you can create projectiles or melee weapons or whips or chains or anything that you want. You can have your character create. You can create a clone of your character, all kinds of stuff. So now I've got the ability to shoot, so I should be able to kill those monsters. Okay, so I just made a couple of quick updates to the underlying code to fix a couple of things. One of the things that was happening was when there were two things trying to update at the same time, for instance, these graphics right here and the score, they were stepping over each other and they were trying to update at the same time, which caused some conflicts. Now that won't happen anymore, so we won't get any weird anomalous things happening in the HUD. And also, I changed it so real quick, just for now, all of the tiles that will disappear and turn into something else change to the 0 tile. So this would change into this brick because that was the 0 tile in this tile set, and above this will change into sky because that's what the 0 tile was in this tile set. There's an interface that we already have that allows you to select this, but it's not implemented in this module right now. So I just want to show you how that all works. So far in our game, we've got something that looks like this. We can jump up here, jump onto my path. I can come over here, and this is where I've got to go, but I can't get up there. There's nothing to see. There's no way to get there because it's locked. Oh no, it's a solid door. Okay, so I need to go down into the underground, and I can check my health works. Definitely works. This bounce tile works, and I can shoot the monsters and get a score, and that lock goes away. So now I can get in that lock and get that key, and bam, now that key, because the rooms, the screens share the same screen type, and that's what that key does, is it triggers that screen type. now I can actually go into the door. Now this is going to take me to, I don't know what room, but you get the idea. It took me to 0, room, but that took me somewhere. So let's do a couple of more things with this engine, just for kicks. Let's make this door take me somewhere. I'm going to have it take me, I don't know, let's have it take me to an interior that looks something like this one. I'll put it way off to the side here. Delete this screen. And I'm just going to F5 everything. And this would be sort of a win screen here. I'm going to edit monster placement details. I'm going to disable everything. Okay, and I'm going to get rid of the spikes so they can't hurt me. I'm going to fill up the ground here. And I'm going to copy these bricks over to here, and I'm going to put the door here. And I can keep it blue if I want. I kind of like that. I don't have to. And maybe like I'll put this jump. I think if I put the jump tile on the floor, I could still get the same bounce. I haven't tested that yet, so we'll see. But I'm going to put, let's see. Let's put this up here a little bit higher so that you have to get in the jump tile here. And we'll F5 this, or F5, not F5, I'm sorry. So this up here is where the win object is going to be. And let's take a look at the code for win right now. So if I go to user scripts and I go to, or if I go to routine, and I go to system and I go to player handle player win. What it does is exactly the same as player death, except it instead of creating it, if I look at player death right here, handle player death, it creates object 8, but instead of creating it with the 0 action step, it creates it with the 7 action step. So if I take a look at object 8, that's this, we called it death. Maybe we should call it death win. So if I go to object details, it creates it at the 7th action. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new animation for this. This only works if it's the same size as my player, but since it is, check this out. If I make another animation and I'll call it win, and I'll manage win into my player, just standing forward, I guess, because I don't have any other graphics right now. And then, you know what I'll do is I'll do this so you can tell that something cool is happening. Copy this frame, go to second frame, paste it, and I'll make, you know, it'll do this. So you'll know something cool is happening. And I have to go to object details, make a new state called win, and change win to all of them will be win, win, win. No matter which direction I'm facing, it's going to look like I'm facing forward. And this, don't forget, this isn't my player object anymore. It looks like my player object, but it's actually this thing down here. And I'll give it some details. No speed, no health, no nothing. It's not even a type. It doesn't have any collision information. It's going to be on 7. It's going to ignore physics, or ignore gravity, I'm sorry. It's going to show win. It's going to have a fairly fast animation speed. I'm going to set a timer to like 4, and when that action timer is done, it's going to win game. Right now, win game is going to take me to a win screen, which is going to be all gray. And that's exactly sort of what I expect. This should actually have a bounding box about the same size as my players. Okay, so now I haven't told it when to go to this because I haven't made a win object yet. But now I've got this object. When I get to a win script, it's going to create this object and show that last frame. And when that animation is over with, it's going to go to the win screen. So let's go. I have to go to the tile set 1 or the screen specific. I have to find something. If I look at my dungeon, you know what I could do? I could do this. I've got a couple of blank tiles up here. Let me make like a chalice here, like a holy grail. I think in one of the last tutorials I made, the object to get was a nest cart. This will be a little bit more traditional, so to speak. And I could give it a little shadow like this. That looks okay. So that's my holy grail. This is going to be my win object here. So I'm going to make it a win game, and I'll call it win. I'm going to save that. Now I've got an object called win. It will run the win game script, and I'm going to put it right here. Now I want this door to take me back and forth to that screen that I unlock. So I need to figure out the position that I'm supposed to enter this screen. I don't want to show up exactly on top of the door, because then I'll be colliding with the door and it'll do the door code. So I want to show up right here. So if I look up here, I can see that's 1012. So I want to show up at this screen at 1012. And what screen is this? It is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So from here, what I can do is I can say, hey, my screen info, I want to warp to screen 11, 6. I'm going to warp out to that screen. If I happen to warp onto this screen, I want to show up right here, which is 6, 4. So if I warp into this screen, I'm going to warp to 6, 4. And if I warp out to that screen, I can't remember what was the number. Was 10, 12. So if I warp into this screen, 10, 12 is where I'm going to show up. And if I warp back out to the other screen, that was 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6, 6. So this door would take me to 6, 6. Okay, so now this is actually going to be a working functional door. Can't get to it yet. Down here. Kill the monsters. And you'll notice if you make a lot of projectiles, you're going to start to get a little bit of slowdown if you crank them out. There are ways to handle that and control that. You could make it so you can only create a certain number of projectiles at a time, that there's a little bit of timer that's got to go by, that the projectiles move even faster or have a limited lifespan, and when their animation's over, they disappear. There's a lot of ways to handle it. So right now I'm just kind of leaving it that way. So now I should be able to go into the door. And I appear, oh, I forgot to get rid of the monsters. And I should be able to bounce on this, yep. And now I go to win, yay! And then I go to the gray screen, which is exactly what I thought would happen. So I've got a game now that I can lose, I can win. Let's add one more little thing here, which is this checkpoint block, which, remember I said this isn't actually a checkpoint block. I'm gonna, like, when I am on top of this block is gonna be when I check. I could make it a checkpoint block, but it's gonna be weird because it looks like a solid object. So if I copy this screen, put it over here, oops, copy, paste, come on, Control C, Control V. There we go. I'm also going to get rid of these monsters here. Edit monster details. This is. Oh, you know. Yeah, it ended up being a triggered screen, so I'm going to get rid of these monsters. And not only that, I'm going to make sure it's a different. I'm going to make sure the screen info isn't 1 for that, 0, so that this isn't a. It's not triggered with the other screen when it's triggered. It's going to trigger all the screens in the map that are set to that number, which was number 1. Let's do a checkpoint real quick. So I'm going to put walls here. And again, that's just my reference for myself as to where the HUD is. I'll do this. I'll get rid of this. And maybe I'll get rid of this monster just for kicks. And I'll make it so I've got to jump up there. And up here, I'm going to put this block here. Like that. And I'm going to make this tile right here is going to be my checkpoint. I'll make this a different color. Let's do, what does that look like? No. What does that look like? What's that look like? Sure, now I can tell it's something. I'm going to make this tile the checkpoint right here. It's going to, so it's got to look like a brick. So what I'll do is I'll go to Assets. I will go to my Underworld dungeon and I will choose the brick. It's going to look like a normal brick tile, except the type is going to be checkpoint. And I'm going to save that. And I'm going to get that new asset, which I never named. I just called it new asset. But if I look up here, I can see that's the checkpoint one right there. In fact, I could change the name of this. And now I'm updating because I selected a tile instead of making a new one. So now over here I can see that's checkpoint. Let me make sure it's screen 0. Yeah, screen type 0, so this isn't going to be affected. And you know what? I want to make a cool little effect, you know, bubbles moving upward, so I can tell this is something that I'm supposed to go to. So let me make a, I'm going to go to my pixel editor. I'm going to open up my monster tiles, and I'm going to make, I'm going to use my red, green, blue to make these. I'm just going to make a 16 by 16. Let's see. So I'm going to make like 4 frames of this, and oops, I'm getting way, like, I probably wouldn't waste this much tile set, but just to make this quick, I'll move this over. In fact, here's a cheat. Let's do that, and you know, I can start breaking those apart. And so these become, and maybe there's a new one bubbling down here. That's bigger. And then this becomes this one. And then this kind of breaks into these, and these become those. I have no idea how this is going to look. It's going to look kind of crappy. I'm not the artist. Sorry, guys. So something like that. I don't know if that's going to work at all, but let's just go with that. And it's going to look like bubbles floating up, you know. So I'm going to save that BMP. Some of you guys could probably find even cooler graphics for this. So let's make this a 4-frame 2x2, and it uses this and this, this, and this. Frame 2 is, and this. Frame 3 is. So I apologize the comical badness of the animation that you're going to see, but hopefully it reads a little bit. This and this and this and this. And I'm going to make a new sub palette. I'm going to call this Flasher or something like that. And I'm going to rename it. All right, so now I'm going to make a monster group, and I'm just going to put, I forgot to save it. I'm sorry. Did that again. New monster, 4 frames, 2x2. It's going to use Flasher, and it's going to go this, and this, and this, and this, and frame 2 is going to, and don't worry about the blue, don't forget that's the transparent color. If I wanted to make this more interesting and spend more time on it, which I don't, I would maybe make this more colorful or whatever. And this is just an effect. That's all I'm creating. It's not actually going to hurt me. It's not even something that I can interact with if I want. It's going to be sitting over the top of the tile. That's going to be the thing that's going to make a checkpoint. But right now, this isn't going to do anything. Now, I could do clever things like make a new type of tile where it changes color when I've hit it and it designates a checkpoint. That would change the engine fundamentally, but I could do that. I'm going to call this Flasher, save it, make a new group, and I'm just going to use flashers. And I could put flashers in the same screen as monsters and things like that. Right now, for this screen, I'm just going to make a flasher. Flashers. Okay. Hit save. Go up to Overworld, and on this screen, I want to use flashers, and I want them to use the flasher sub palette like that, and I want them to appear right here. And so this is going to look sort of like it's bubbling. I do need to set its animation though. So go back to monsters, object details. I want it to animate pretty fast, and it's not going to do anything, but it is going to ignore gravity. I'll give it a bounding box too. I'm not actually colliding with this. I just always feel comfortable giving objects bounding boxes in case I ever later decide that I want some sort of collision with it. I don't need to give it any type because I'm not interacting with it. No speed, no solid reaction, no health, nothing. So let's take a look at that. And if I come over here now, I could see, oh, that doesn't look too horrible. I could tell that's something I'm, supposed to interact with in some way. And now if I hit that, I didn't notice anything that happened. A sound effect would be really helpful right there. But check this out now. If I die, I respawn in that new position. Instead of respawning at the beginning, my checkpoint has respawned me there. So you can imagine how great that would be for a really intricate, Metroidvania style game where you have a lot of places to explore, a large map to explore. And now again, here we go, and I can get into there and get the cup, and I win. So again, there's we've done so much in less than 3 hours. Let's add a little bit of music and sound effects. So right now, what's loaded is, we haven't even talked about sound effects in any of the tutorials. What we've got loaded right now for music is empty song and sound effects empty. What I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on sound and import a FamiTracker file. And the FamiTracker files that I'm going to look for, I've got a bunch of music in, let's see, desktop, temp folder. These are some things that I've loaded that have sound effects, and so beta, let's see, with Mystic Searches, stop. I'm not sure. Sample music and sound effects. Let's load up that I've created that in Family Tracker, so this should give me some songs and some sound effects. Now, I should be able to play this. This might be very loud, so I apologize. I can't control the volume. I'll try and control it in post. So loud sound, here we go. So that's sort of the beta sound, start song music. Here's the main song. Here's the end song. Now, the sound effects now work, but the tool does not play them very well. But I still should be able to hear what they sound like, kind of get an idea. It's actually playing them at the wrong speed, and it's playing them out of pitch for the noise channel, and it's not observing any pitch change. They sound a little bit weird, but I've got a death sound effect, I've got a wind sound effect, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to use these to show you how you can play a sound effect. I'm not going to go through and put sound effects everywhere there should be, but let's add some music because that makes things a lot more interesting to play. So to add music, it's already loaded. If I look at my tool and I look at now that I've got the music loaded, if I look at, it was actually already playing music. It was just playing no song. In the start screen, it's already playing the start song. On the win screen, it's playing the start song. I want it to play the end song. It's going to give me my choices from over here. During my actual gameplay screens, I can go to screen info and I can tell it I want it to play the song index. Which song? Now this should be a drop down with names, but we just haven't done that quite yet. But they're in order, so 0, 1, 2. Well, I want all my gameplay screens to play song number 1. So let's see, song number 1. I could have a different song for Underground. I could have a different sound for a screen that, is more like an NPC screen. For right now, I'm just going to put all of these at 1. So all my gameplay screens are the more upbeat version. There's a start screen song and there's an end screen song. And just so the end screen isn't just completely black, let me go to my win screen and make it a color. And I don't know why only half of this is showing up. I got to talk to Josh about that. I apologize. That's going to make creating start and win screens a little bit tricky, but we'll patch that really soon. And let's load up. Let's see. Let's open up desktop. Let's go to my graphic assets folder. Okay, let's go to beta assets and let's pull in my HUD tiles here. And I'll copy this. This is my older version of the HUD graphics, but I'm just going to use it in my win screen so I can build a tiny little win screen. So you'll see I've got one called win screen, and I'm going to paste it top corner. And I'm going to save that. So now I have those graphics to work with in my win screen. So I could just put, Y, use my arrow keys to move my selection point there. U, win. And then maybe just awesome. So now let's test the game, and we should have some music to accompany our gameplay. There may even be stray sound effects in certain places. I believe I automatically have a sound effect loaded, for instance, when you press the start button and stuff like that. But I'll show you how to control that. Let's change the volume here. I think I can actually change. There. That should be a little bit more. Yeah. So So that was actually the death sound effect. It was the first sound effect that played. And I've also got the sound effect happening when you shoot, and I'll show you where that's happening. But when I die, that's where that sound effect is supposed to play. And it's actually supposed to start playing this again when the screen loads, but I never set it to start. It'll start when I go to the next screen. Oh, it should. It'll start when the music changes, so I actually won't see a change. That's something I should fix right now. It's something I should absolutely fix. Hold on one second. I'm going to fix that. Okay, I just updated a little bit of the code so that way the music registers on the continue, not just the game start. And because it only updates to a new song if the song is different on the new screen. So if the song was the same on the screen you continue on, then it before when the screen loaded, it wasn't loading new music, and it had stopped when you died, so it just wasn't starting again. Now when you die, music will stop, but when it starts over again, there you go. So let's do a couple of things. Let's get to the end of this game. So first of all, we'll do the checkpoint. There should definitely be a sound effect of some kind there, right? Right now, like every sound is one of those two, either death or win. So everything's pretty much sound effect 0, which is death. So now I can go in here, and when I get to, it's playing the win sound, and I didn't get the attributes right on the start the win screen, but you notice it is the well, actually that's the wrong music, isn't it? It should be this music. So let's take a look at my win screen. Special screens, and because it says song, start song, so I'm going to make sure it's end song, and I'm going to make sure that I have a feeling that it was showing the wrong attributes on this. This is an interface we are still working on and still perfecting, and we're going to make much cooler. We've been designing a lot of our start and end special screens in Nest Screen Tool, and then bringing them in here like I showed you with the start screen. Okay, so now it will play the end song when I get to there. We'll test it one more time. And there we go. So that's a really simple look at how we can get, from start screen to end screen. We can win, we can lose, we can keep score, we can have lives and health working, make monsters that behave and interact and seems like they're intelligent with those screen bound or those monster boundaries. Last, let me show you how to add a sound effect. Because I haven't shown you that. A lot of these scripts are creating sound effects already. So for instance, here's where it's creating a sound effect when you create a projectile. I believe there is probably a play sound effect right here. It's playing sound effect 0 with a what's it called? This is whether it's got priority or not. If there are other sound effects playing, it's either a 0 or a 1, and 0 defines that it's got a higher priority than if it's got a 1. I think that's correct. But really, this is the part that you're most interested in right here. So I'm just going to copy this, play sound, and then 0 would be this. I want to I want to use the wind sound a couple of times, like maybe when I, run into that key, or definitely when I get to the end of the game, and maybe, some other times. So that would be sound effect number 101. So I can copy that, and I'm going to go to, let's see. I need to get into some different parts of the code. One being, I'll tell you what, when I press the start button, I play sound 0. That's the death sound. I don't want to play the death sound. I want to play the wind sound now. So I'm going to change this to play sound number 1. And now watch what happens when I press the start button. So that was the wind sound effect. That what? Let's see, where else can I do this really easily? I definitely want to, when I collide with that, when my player collides with user scripts, tile types. Which type was it? 6, 5, not 5, not 6. Looking for the checkpoint. So if my player hits the checkpoint, I also want to play sound. I'll play the wind sound. 1 and 0, 0. So again, the sound effect number, and then the priority, and I usually keep that just 0. I don't usually change it to 1. So it's going to play the wind sound now when I get to that checkpoint. That way I know something happened. And what's going to be obnoxious is it's going to keep playing so long as I'm in contact with it. So I would need to figure out a way not to do that. But let's just test that as a theory. So now I've got some indicator, at least, that I have some indicator that I did something, which is the important part. So, let's take a look at all the things that this game engine can do at this point that we have sort of learned over the process of this that I just blasted through. Turn the volume sort of way down. Let's turn the volume down further. Okay, so we've got a start screen with its own music. We've got a gameplay screen. We've got sound effects that you just heard. Hopefully you guys can follow the tutorials on how to make more sound effects for different purposes. We've got how to draw text to a HUD, how to draw a HUD box, how to draw variable values, how to draw numeric values. We've got ladder physics. We've got bounce tile physics. We've got monsters that can hurt you. Obviously, that should probably make a sound. We've got monsters that you can shoot. We've got projectiles that you shoot. We've got instant death. We've got lock blocks that need something in order to unlock. We've got these cool checkpoints, instant death that will reset at the checkpoint. We've got monster blocks where you have to defeat all the monsters in order for the blocks to go away. We've got how to trigger entire events. So that key, even though it was kind of anticlimactic with no sound effect, just triggered the change to this screen. Well, now those lock blocks have gone away, and I've got a portal that takes me to other screens, and I've got a way to win the game. So that's you can imagine how much you can do with just that stuff if you spread it out and made some diversity, made a lot of different monsters and things like that. So that's a really sort of long look at going from absolute zero and making a simple platform game.